This is my presentation on the attacks of Pearl Harbor. So this is the background of the attack. FDR cut off all trade with Japan, and Japan called this an unfriendly act. This hurt Japan especially because of Japan's lack of oil and scrap metal, and these are both assets. With no oil, Japan wanted to withdraw from China, and during this, Tokyo looked to take over Britain, France, and the Dutch because of their weaknesses in Asia and because of their desire to get more dominance and resources. This made Japan want to take advantage of the opportunity, even if it meant they would have to go to war with the U.S. Pearl Harbor, the attacks of Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941, and this was a Sunday. And this is important that it was a Sunday because the Japanese chose this especially because they thought the U.S. would be less alert at this time. These attacks overall made the U.S. enter the World War II, and it temporarily crippled the U.S. fleet. And prior to the attacks, the U.S. reportedly intended to declare war and sent a message. However, the president never got the message. Japan's tactics. So they planned everything specifically, even down to the day of the week, as I talked about. Japan wanted to seize the U.S. and the European possessions in the Far East, forcing the U.S. Navy to fight its way across the Pacific to relieve them. They believed that an attack they hoped that it would prevent the U.S. from attacking Japan, and that it would cripple the U.S. Navy and destroy many of their ships. And destroying many of their ships would hopefully buy time so that Japan could build up their defense ring. One of Japan's leaders, Yamamoto, thought that this attack would demoralize the U.S. and make the U.S. make an agreement that would give Japan dominance in the western area of the Pacific. This would help them continue to take over more countries in Southeast Asia. Japan sent their fleet of over 400 aircrafts while nobody had a clue what was going to happen in Pearl Harbor because it was such a surprise. 360 of the 423 planes actually participated, and even though a reported, quote, warning of war was sent, nobody ever thought that Japan would even dare to attack Pearl Harbor. The attack. So, the planes were ordered to launch at 6 a.m. at a point about 275 miles away from Pearl Harbor. And before the launch, American picket ships off the harbor entrance detected one Japanese midget submarine, and they sunk another. There were 5 Japanese midget submarines in the operation, carried to the area by a mother submarine, and they were to enter the harbor and wait for the attack. Only one of them actually succeeded. These events of them seeing these planes should have made a difference in the attack, but it never did. At 7:50 a.m., the first waves of Japanese aircraft started the attacks on the ships at Pearl Harbor and the air stations at Iwo, Ford Island, Hickam, Kanahu, and Wheeler. A majority of U.S. planes were destroyed, and out of 8 U.S. warships, half of them were completely destroyed, and the other half were still badly damaged. One of the sunken ships was the USS Arizona, and while the ship sunk, it killed over 1,000 people itself, and most of the aircrafts were destroyed, and the other ones were damaged. Only 29 aircrafts were actually damaged or destroyed, and this attack killed over 2,300 people and wounded 1,100 over. After the attack. So the U.S. was luckily able to repair from the attacks, and after Franklin Roosevelt gave a famous speech, and he said that December 7th would be a date that would live in infamy. And the citizens of the U.S. were in shock. because of the attacks. And they tried to avoid the war, but they obviously couldn't avoid war after this big attack. The next day, on December 8th, 1941, the U.S. declared war on Japan. 3 days later from that, Japan's allies, Germany and Italy, declared war on the U.S. also. The United States was now a major part of World War II. Luckily, no aircrafts were hit in the attack, and also their main target of the oil deposit. If they had hit the oil deposit, the fleet would not be able to stay in the harbor. Also, Japan failed to hit the U.S. repair facilities, and the attacks later came back to hurt Japan because the Japanese had hoped to break the Americans, but instead it united them as people, and which later led to the defeat of Japan, with the U.S. winning World War II. The memorial of the attack is now called the USS Arizona Memorial, but overall, the Japanese did not achieve their goals and objectives of this attack. This photo is super famous. You've probably seen it before, and it shows how the U.S. took a hard hit from the attacks, but still came back and stayed united to win the war. This is my quiz. So, number 1, what was the date of this attack? And it was obviously December 7th, 1941 on a Sunday. 2, why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? So they wanted to prevent the U.S. from attacking Japan, to continue taking over countries in the southeast, and to cripple the U.S. Navy. And overall, their objective failed. Number 3, why was the fact that it was a Sunday important? And the answer is because Japan had planned it it was because Japan planned it specifically. They thought the U.S. would be less alert. These are my citations. Oh, sorry. First, I used a site from World War at abcclio.com, and then I used ducksters.com. Thank you. That's all.